Hey everybody, how's it going? This video is going to be on the Rockler Mortise bed frame hardware. So basically pretty simple stuff. It just goes in and drops down and makes a nice secure hidden connection. Now honestly, this project was kind of my nightmare. Not so much in doing it, worrying about it. Because of one simple fact is routing, or not routing, but having to put a mortise in ingrain. And there's all kinds of problems with that. It wasn't easy. I first tried it with a chisel. The chisel didn't work out very good at all. I couldn't get my bottoms flat. I just had problems. Even with sharp chisels, just had problems with it. I went looking for another option. Ended up with a trim router with a 1/4 inch up spiral bit, which actually worked out pretty well. So this is, you'll see that in the video. Basically, I think it turned out pretty well. There wasn't a whole lot of information on the internet. There were some forums and one partially done video on YouTube. And the forums were mixed matched. Everybody was saying a different thing. So a lot of people were saying build a jig, but I didn't want to do that for one project. I'll never use the jig again, so I went with the flush trim router and an edge guide on the router, and that worked out really well. So let's get into it. Hope you enjoy. Alright, I just wanted to show how I'm doing my layout for my bed hardware. This will be the female end, and basically all I did was drew my center line, and then I measured 1 inch down from my 3/8 gap at the top, so that way it'll be 1 inch on all my boards and everything. Then I just took my marking gauge, set it to I believe it was 1 1/8 inches. Yeah, roughly, maybe a little bit over an inch and 1/8 inches, and just marked all the way along each side. Okay, so now that you got all the depth set with your drill press, and you've drilled out down to that point, you're just going to begin pawing away the sides with your chisel. So having a good, nice, sharp chisel does wonders. So you can just start removing some of that material. Just start with a nice edge and work your way. You want to make sure you put a nice chisel mark on that back point. That way, when you start pawing this away, you don't get any tear out. Just do it a little bit at a time. And just keep pawing away like that. Make sure you keep severing those fibers at the very back of the so that's what that looks like, except I haven't done the little mortises for the hooks. So I'm going to do that next. Alright, so here's what it all looks like when it comes together. So, in the bottom here, it's got two more little mini mortises, as I call them, which is for this piece, so when they sit the right way up, you want to make sure that this is in the right orientation, that so where these things, when they go in, they actually have someplace to sit. See, it's got this bigger gap down here than up here. So these go in and slides down. Perfect match. It's not bottoming it out. It perfectly sits in there perfectly. So once we get the rail connected to this part, then those two should butt right next to each other. The wood should be right, real close, no gaps, and nice and tight. So there's that for the legs. Alright, so for the end grain, basically what I'm going to do, or what I did, is all my boards, my hardware starts an inch from the top. So I just measured down an inch from the top, drew a line, and put my hardware right in the center, and drew a line at the bottom. So I got my defining points for the start and the stop of each cut. And it's also nice that when you start off, basically I would do this on a piece of scrap first, so that way you can get your shoulders set for the mortises. That's the easiest way. That way you can take this sample board, set up your router, get your edge guide exactly where you want it to be. So that way, like the way I'm doing it, is you take the router and you set it up with the edge guide on there, and you make a cut on each side to find each shoulder. I do that on all four ends of the boards. So that way, I don't have to keep moving my edge guide back and forth. All my shoulders will be the exact same. So I do one side and then the other side, and there'll still be a piece left in the middle that you have to get rid of. But as you'll see in here in a little bit, I take care of that at the same time. So basically I'm taking care of both shoulders for all my pieces at once. That way there's not multiple different sizes. There's no room for error on each board. That way I can get it all in one pass. So as you'll see here, you'll see what I'm going to do. So let's get started. And leave the router on there while the bit is spinning until the bit stops, and take it off. That way you don't have to worry about nicking your shoulders. Make sure when you plunge down that the base is nice and flat and even. It's not tilted one way or direction. If you're going to tilt it any direction at all, tilt it towards you a little bit. Don't tilt it back, because when you tilt it back like I just did, there's a little bit of a nick there. That was an accident, but you know, these aren't going to be seen, so it's not that big of a deal. So from here, I just take the board, flip it over. This is just preference for me. By flipping it over, you can come around and do the other side without flipping it over, but it's just easier for me to see this way, to have it one direction. So, and then I come back, okay, so now once you've got it to here, just move your edge guide back a little bit so it's not going to interfere with your work, and hog out the rest of the middle. And then you should have a pretty good fitting mortise. I might have to do a little extra work with the chisel, but not nearly as much as doing it all by chisel. So you might have to just clean up the corners, maybe the ends just a little bit. I always leave my work a little bit undersized instead of oversized, so if I need to clean up a little bit, not that big of a deal. So, now that it's a pretty good fit. It's the edges are a little bit further away than I'd like, but hey, you know what? Nobody's going to see this. Not that big of a deal. With these things, the biggest part on their strength is sitting at the bottom of the mortise. So as long as your bottom is good, and these two edges are sized correctly, that's where most of your strength is going to come from. Because you're not going to have a whole lot of tipping side or movement side to side. You're going to have more up and down. So, all right. And from there, once you get everything hogged out, your edges all defined and nicely cleaned up, I just take this piece and place it where you want it in there, and just lightly tap this part. On these, if you get them from Rockler, they've got a little piece at the very end or at the back of it that you have to recess into the board. So, and it's got these nice little grooves on it, so when you tap it, it leaves nice little grooves in the wood. Come back with a 1/2" Forstner bit and just kind of line up right in the middle of where those grooves are. Don't need to go down too far. They're not very thick, but maybe 1/8 of an inch. Those should fit in there nice and flush. Yep, nice flush fit, nothing sticking out. It's pretty much exactly flush. Now, one little trick with these things to get your depth set to be an exact flush fit is I just took two of these, the back ones, the nice flat ones, set them on a nice flat surface, set my router on top of that, and that way you get a nice base, and you can set that depth to be exact. So right when it's touching the wood, maybe just penetrating the wood just a tad, when you set the router bit, and that works great for me with flushing it up. Okay guys, you can choose to do this or not. Basically, end grain, screws into end grain, not the best choice. It doesn't have the best hold. I'm using pretty coarse screws, number 8s, so that the heads will fit in. But I chose to basically, I don't think I'm going to do this middle one. I think I'm only going to do 2. But I took 3/4 inch dowels, marked where my screws were, and put the dowels and drew a 3/4 inch Forstner bit and put the dowels into them, and I'll glue them, sand them flush, and that should give me some more strength. Basically, I put the screws. I'm using 3-inch screws for the end grain, so I put it about halfway so that it should have enough to bite into. Just a little extra precaution, since end grain is not the best for screws. So it should add a little extra rigidity to it. Kind of up to you. But I think I'm just going to do 2, one here and one here on the inside of the board, so they will not be seen. They'll be hidden. So you can make a decorative piece out of it. Basically, I drew about 3/4, or I drilled 3/4 of an inch. Not 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 way through the board, so that should give me plenty of biting room. So up to you if you want to do it, but I'm going to try and make this bed as strong as I can so it can last me the rest of my life. Alright, so if you did everything right, it should look like this. on both sides. Now I've got the leg recessed just a tad bit. This is more flush. This is a little bit recessed, just so I can get that perfect fit. I want my boards to look like they belong to each other. So if it's a little too tight and it's not going down, now this went down relatively easy, but if that recessed part, or if your boards aren't connecting very well, just loosen the screws in the recessed part so it can pull itself out just a little bit. You should still have plenty of leftover space at the bottom. If you have to really reduce the screws, then you went down too much. But mine's recessed probably 1/32, so it's not much. But if it's too tight and it's not fitting together just right, then just let up on those screws a little bit so they're not as tight, and it'll pull it out just a little bit. But should go together and have a nice firm fit. No spacing, no rocking. So that's what it should look like. Should be a nice, hard, put together joint with no visibility.